Hello, my name is Lona Cobb. Welcome to my presentation for my dissertation on Neanderthal culture, analyzing Neanderthal worldviews through their imagery. During this presentation, I will give an overview of current research on Neanderthal art, which will then lead into the issues at hand and thus my own research question for this subject. I will also go more in depth with the current research on the different types of Neanderthal art, which are parietal art, portable art, and personal ornamentation. I will then discuss my materials and methods for my research and my preliminary results for my research. Lastly, I will end this presentation with my preliminary conclusions and next steps. Over the past decade, there has been an increase in Neanderthal research, particularly after the whole Neanderthal genome sequence in 2011 that revealed Neanderthals are much more closely related to humans than previously thought. Much of this research has focused on the cognitive capabilities of Neanderthals in comparison to Homo sapiens. This research has generated an increase in pushback against previous research on Neanderthals, which stereotyped them as brutish cavemen that could never be as capable as sapiens, as seen here on the side. After this, many have come to the conclusion that Neanderthals were just as cognitively capable as sapiens. They could make equally complex tools, could organize in equally large communities, and could create equally intricate art. However, there are still some issues when it comes to this research. Mainly, it tends to focus only on the cognition of Neanderthal art. We do now understand that Neanderthals had the right mental capacity to make art and have some sort of aesthetic sense, and thus had equally evolved brains like early sapiens did. But there has been little research into the Neanderthal art beyond this cognitive aspect. However, there has been much research beyond the cognitive aspect for Upper Paleolithic sapiens and their art. We have a much more complete understanding of sapiens art, so much so that there are many ideas surrounding the meaning of Paleolithic sapiens art and how it fits into their worldview. However, Neanderthal art has not been given the same amount of attention. Therefore, an important question to researchers of Neanderthal art is, where is this research for Neanderthals? Based on this, my research questions for my dissertation have focused on this lack of research and analysis for Neanderthal art. My main research question is, can Neanderthal-made art and art objects be analyzed through a cultural lens? Early sapiens art is often categorized into different cultures based on regions and time periods, yet this has not been done with the same detail to Neanderthal art. This is what I am seeking to do with my research. A secondary question that I would like to address in my research is, what is preventing us from fully understanding Neanderthal art as we have with Upper Paleolithic sapiens art? Though I may not come to a concrete answer for this one, I would still like to ask it as it brings awareness to the problem of the lack of research and if there are still biases within archaeology regarding Neanderthals and their capabilities. Moving on to current research in Neanderthal art, parietal art examples for Neanderthals, which is art painted or engraved on rock or cave walls, mainly focuses on the Iberian Peninsula, particularly along the coast of northern Spain and the Gibraltar region. Much of this research comes from three cave systems in Spain: La Pasiega, Montroviejo, and Ardales. In a landmark study by Hoffman et al., it was determined many examples from these caves, such as the one on the side from La Pasiega, these date to 50,000 years ago or earlier, which is about 10,000 years before sapiens migrated to Europe. They determined this by using uranium-thorium dating to determine the age of the calcium deposits that overlie the art. However, this dating method is quite controversial due to an increased risk for contamination that could lead to incorrect dates. But despite this research has held up and is incredibly influential when it comes to research in Neanderthal art, especially since the presence of parietal art in early Sapiens societies, such as the art from Lascaux, is seen as peak artistic evolution. These Spanish examples put Neanderthals on par with these early Sapiens societies. Portable art examples for Neanderthals are extremely varied in material and type. Previously, portable art objects were not recognized as artistic or aesthetic objects for neither Sapiens or Neanderthals, but these have gained better recognition as valid and valuable examples of early art. Engraved portable objects from Bildungsleben, Germany, took many years to be accepted as an intentional piece of art, as many arguments had been made that they were merely cutting marks from the slabs used as cutting boards. However, further analysis of these objects showed that they were indeed intentional engravings and could not have been accidental cutting marks, helped by the discovery of more engraved objects, such as the engraved deer phalanx from Einhorn-Holle, pictured here, a very intentionally made artifact. Many of these examples for Neanderthal portable art are also reanalyses of objects previously attributed to Sapiens, or they hadn't been recognized as artistic objects when they were first discovered. Ochre also becomes an important artifact for Neanderthal portable art, as it can not only be used for parietal art, clothing, and skin decoration, it can also be engraved and itself become an artistic object. Neanderthal portable art has increasingly had more proper attribution due to better archaeological practices such as dating and identification of aesthetic objects, as well as the recognition that Neanderthals were capable of making such objects. Personal ornamentation examples for Neanderthals have had a much earlier attribution to Neanderthals. However, personal ornamentation was not as readily accepted as a form of art as others were. As with portable art, it took much more research to accept personal ornamentation as a valid form of art, especially for Neanderthals. Even after this acceptance, there was much controversy around how Neanderthals first created their personal ornamentation. Some researchers argued that Neanderthals only learned how to make personal ornamentation through assimilation from Sapiens. The Neanderthal personal ornamentation from Grotte du Rhin, pictured here, was often either attributed to Sapiens or heavily argued as evidence for assimilation by Neanderthals, as the stratigraphy from the early excavations at the site wasn't clear and many layers had mixed together. For assimilation, Neanderthals were cognitively capable of making complex artifacts, but they did rely on sapient introduction to these artifacts, thus being incapable of coming up with the idea themselves. Others have recently argued that Neanderthals were capable of creating their own personal ornamentation outside of contact from sapiens, mostly due to the discovery of artifacts older than the migration of sapiens to Europe at about 40,000 years ago. It has also been noted recently that Neanderthals often have specific styles of personal ornamentation involving birds of prey and other bird species, which lends to the argument of indigeneity. Examples of modified eagle talons show they were purposefully cut from birds of prey to be used for ornamentation, as well as examples of cut-marked bird wing bones showing evidence for feather extraction, also for personal decoration. With this evidence, we are moving towards a Neanderthal-specific art culture. So, for my research, I have created a database of currently known Neanderthal-made art and art objects. These examples range from all over Europe and into the Near East, range in time from the Middle Paleolithic to the Chalcopyronian, and consist of several different types of art. Using this database, I will map out the location of these objects using ArcGIS and will then conduct a temporal spatial analysis on it. With this, I will be searching for patterns that could indicate cultures in art, as has been done with Upper Paleolithic Sapiens art. The patterns I am most interested in involve patterns in time periods, regions, and art types. When conducting my preliminary analysis, temporal patterning does become clear. Over half of the artifacts in the database are dated to the late Mousterian. From there, about a quarter are then dated to the middle of the Mousterian. Patterns in art type is less clear, although there appears to be a preference for engraved objects, at about a quarter of all objects being engraved, followed by grave goods, and then personal ornamentation. Some spatial patterning can be seen, especially in conjunction with other research. However, more spatial patterning could be seen with specific art types. In 2012, Finlayson et al. Observed a spatial patterning in Neanderthal bird exploitation being most prevalent in southern Europe. However, they did not extrapolate further upon this, concluding that it shows Neanderthals were cognitively as capable of expressing themselves as sapiens. With more discoveries having been made since then, even beyond bird exploitation, we are at the point where we can conclude Neanderthals had cultures around art types on the same level as sapiens. Additionally, many of the artifacts in my sample remain contentious despite much analysis. Much of this is due to poor archaeological practices in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. However, modern issues with stratigraphy and dating also creates these problematic artifacts. At this point, an additional question can be posited. Will we ever know the extent of Neanderthal art, not only due to poor past excavations, but also due to the ongoing taphonomic dilemma as posed by Bednarik in the 1990s? It becomes clear that even with these contentious examples, and even with examples that are missing entirely, the study of Pleistocene art has never been as simple as was previously thought. In conclusion, patterning regarding Neanderthal art becomes clear with more analysis. With this preliminary research, we can begin to answer my previously asked questions. Temporal and art type patterns have already become clear, and with more research, more patterns can absolutely also appear that could inform us much about Neanderthal culture. However, more research should still be done regarding bias, which may be preventing more of this research from being conducted. This bias may be remaining prejudices about the inferiority of Neanderthals, but it may also be the fact that we only have such art examples from places archaeology has been conducted. Reanalysis of purported sapiens objects may ease this bias, but ultimately, where no archaeology has been conducted, no archaeology will be analyzed. As for my next steps in my research, I will move forward with art type specific mapping, as some research mentioned previously has shown much potential in this area. Further spatial patterning could show region-specific cultures, which is common to find in early sapiens art. With this, I hope that there will be more recognition for Neanderthal art beyond just their implications for cognition and will begin to inform us about Neanderthal culture and worldviews. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.